When we first moved into the place, it was supposed to be temporary. Two broke friends, fresh out of college, trying to make ends meet in a city that didn't care how many degrees we had. Rent prices were a joke, and jobs were harder to land than we expected. So when we found a semi-decent one-bedroom apartment with a tiny kitchen and a slanted floor, we didn't think twice. "Dude, we'll just split the bed," Sean said, waving it off like it wasn't a big deal. "It's a queen. I don't even move when I sleep." That wasn't technically true. I'd seen him nap on the couch during undergrad. The guy tossed and turned like he was training for a wrestling match. But I was too exhausted from apartment hunting and rejections to argue. "All right," I said. "Just no cuddling." He laughed. "I'll try to resist." We moved in that weekend. The bed took up nearly the whole room, so we pushed it against the wall and called it a day. Our nightstands were 2 cardboard boxes from Target, and we shared 1 lamp, 1 dresser, and a sad-looking floor fan that clicked every time it rotated. But we made it work. The first few nights were fine. We slept on opposite sides of the bed, backs turned, not touching. It was weird, yeah, but we were both so tired from job applications and side gigs that sleep just happened. We didn't talk about it. Just crashed every night, then went our separate ways in the morning. But by the end of the first week, I started to notice small things. Sean's side of the bed got closer. Not like dramatically, not all at once, but little by little, inch by inch. First, it was just the blanket. He'd tug it over more than halfway to his side. Then it was his leg brushing against mine during the night. Then it was the weight of his arm flopping over and resting near my chest for a second too long. At first, I thought I was imagining it. Or maybe he was just a chaotic sleeper. But it kept happening. And what's worse, what really threw me off, was that I didn't move away. I told myself it was fine. Harmless. It's not like Sean meant anything by it. We'd been friends for almost 3 years, lived together on and off, shared food, talked about girls, talked about life. We'd seen each other at our worst. Hungover, crying after breakups, fighting over stupid stuff like who finished the almond milk. This was just another thing. Another line crossed because we were too close and too broke to have boundaries. Until one night, he didn't just roll closer, he stayed there. Pressed up against my back. His chest to my shoulder blades, warm breath against my neck. It was like my whole body forgot how to breathe. I didn't move. I just lay there, frozen, every muscle tense, my eyes wide open in the dark, staring at the cracked ceiling. His arm draped over me, heavy, real, not just a sleep twitch. He was awake. I knew it, and I didn't stop him. Not because I didn't know what was happening, but because, deep down, I think I wanted it. I didn't sleep much that night, not because of the arm across my chest, or the steady rise and fall of Sean's breathing against my back, or the weight of his body so close that our skin practically fused through the thin layer of fabric. I didn't sleep because I didn't know what the hell I was supposed to feel. I laid there for hours, staring into the dark like it had answers. My body was humming with heat, but it wasn't just because of Sean. It was the million thoughts racing through my head, all screaming over each other for attention. Was he drunk? No. We hadn't even gone out. We split a frozen pizza and watched YouTube until midnight. Was he sleepwalking? Maybe. But sleepwalkers don't curl their fingers lightly into your shirt or let out those soft, barely there sighs that make your heart hammer in your ribs. He didn't move for hours, and neither did I. In the morning, he was already out of bed when I woke up. His side of the mattress was cool, the blankets messily folded over like he'd left in a hurry. I sat up, disoriented, blinking at the sunlight streaming through the busted blinds. For a second, I thought I'd dreamed it, that maybe my mind had cooked up some weird fantasy in the dark. But when I walked into the kitchen, Sean was there, barefoot, shirtless, drinking straight from a carton of orange juice. He looked at me over the rim, eyes a little unreadable, then said, "Morning." That was it. No smile, no teasing, just morning. I nodded. "Hey." He put the carton back, wiped his mouth with the back of his hand, and turned to make eggs like nothing happened. We didn't talk about it. That was the worst part. The silence. Not the arm. Not the closeness. The fact that something had shifted and we were both pretending it hadn't. For the rest of the day, he acted normal, like nothing was different. He texted job recruiters, made jokes about the crappy state of our internet, even argued with me about which kind of ramen was better. And I played along, because I didn't want to be the first one to bring it up. I didn't want to make it real if he wasn't ready to. But that night, when we climbed back into bed, I couldn't relax. I stayed on my side, blanket pulled high, heart pounding with anticipation. Would it happen again? Would he move closer? Would he stay away now that it had happened once and gotten weird? 10 minutes passed. Then 15. He didn't budge. I was about to turn over and say something, anything, when I felt it. That same slow shift in the mattress. The subtle weight of a body leaning in, not rushing, not hesitating, just being deliberate. Like he'd waited until he was sure I was awake. His hand landed on my hip this time. Light, careful. I didn't breathe. Then quietly, so quietly I thought I imagined it. He said, "You still awake?" My voice caught in my throat. I managed a soft, "Yeah." Another beat passed. I could feel his breath behind me again, slower this time, like he was holding something back. "You didn't move last night," he said. I swallowed hard. "Neither did you." A half laugh escaped him, nervous and breathy. "Yeah." "Was it on purpose?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He didn't answer right away. His hand shifted slightly on my side. Not moving away, just grounding himself, or grounding me. "Not at first," he said. "But when I realized I was close and you didn't move, I just stayed." I turned then. Slowly, rolling onto my back so I could look at him. He was staring down at me, eyes wide open in the dark, his face unreadable except for the slight tension in his jaw. His hand was still resting on my side, warm through the thin layer of my shirt. I searched his face for something, guilt, amusement, confusion, but what I found instead was fear. Not panic, not regret, just that quiet, awful kind of fear that you feel when you're about to say something that could ruin everything. I knew that fear. I'd felt it 1,000 times before, every time I'd stared too long, laughed too hard. Let myself imagine what it'd be like if Sean looked at me the way I looked at him. "I didn't mean to make it weird," he said finally. "You didn't," I said, maybe too quickly. Sean raised an eyebrow. "You sure?" I nodded. Yeah, I was surprised, but I didn't mind." He let out a breath, his shoulders relaxing just slightly. "Okay." We lay there for a while, staring at the ceiling, or pretending to. Then I said, "Do you, want to stay like this?" His eyes flicked to mine. "Like this? Yeah, close." Sean didn't answer right away, but then he nodded. "Yeah, I do." He didn't need to say anything else. He shifted in, his arm curling around me again, this time without hesitation. Our legs tangled slightly under the blanket, and I let my head rest back on the pillow, trying to quiet the racing of my heart. He didn't say anything else. Neither did I, but sleep came easier that night. We didn't talk about it the next morning. Again, but this time, the silence didn't feel awkward. It felt like a secret we were both in on. A quiet kind of understanding. Sean made coffee while I sat on the counter, legs dangling, watching the way he moved around the kitchen like nothing had changed, even though everything had. He passed me a mug without looking at me. "Cream's gone," he said. "I'll survive," I muttered, even though I wouldn't. We sipped in silence, side by side. My leg brushed against his. He didn't move. Later that day, I had a freelance interview on Zoom, so I shut myself in the bedroom, combed my hair for the first time in a week, and tried to sound confident. The whole time, part of my brain was stuck on the night before, the way his hand had found my side again, the way he'd let his leg rest across mine by the time we both drifted off. It wasn't accidental anymore, it wasn't vague, it was something. By the time I came out of the room, he was lying on the couch, playing FIFA on his laptop with one leg thrown over the armrest. I flopped down beside him, stealing one of his fries without asking. He didn't complain. We didn't talk about the bed, the night, the closeness. But when our knees touched on the couch and neither of us moved, again, I caught him watching me out of the corner of his eye. That night, I climbed into bed first. I lay on my back, phone in hand, not reading anything, just refreshing the same 3 apps in a loop. I could hear Sean brushing his teeth in the bathroom. The faint sounds of the faucet, the scrape of his toothbrush against the sink. I kept waiting for nerves to hit me, for the awkward tension to creep back in. But it didn't. Just a weird, buzzing anticipation. He walked in wearing just gym shorts, his usual sleep gear, no shirt. He stretched, arms overhead, spine cracking. "You gonna hog all the space tonight or what?" he asked, climbing into bed. "There's like 4 inches of space in total." I shot back, smirking. He slid in next to me, and we both lay there, staring up at the ceiling. "You cold?" he asked after a minute. "Not really. Cool." And then, slowly, deliberately, he turned onto his side and pulled me in. No hesitation this time. One arm across my chest, his legs brushing against mine. My back pressed against him, warm and solid and familiar in a way that shouldn't have felt so normal. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. He stayed like that. I could feel his fingers twitch slightly on my stomach, like he was nervous but trying to play it cool. I didn't say anything. I didn't have to. This was new territory, and neither of us knew the rules yet. "Hey," he said, voice low in the dark. "Yeah? Is this weird?" I thought about it. "No," I said. "It should be, but it's not." He didn't respond right away. "I've never done this before," he said finally. "Like, with a guy?" I nodded. "Same." Another pause. Then, "Do you think it means something?" I felt my chest tighten. Not in a bad way. Just full, heavy with all the words I'd been holding back for too long. "Yeah," I said. "I think it does." He pulled me a little closer after that. Tighter, like he was scared I'd vanish if he didn't. The next morning, it wasn't just that we'd shared a bed, or that we'd woken up tangled together. It was the look he gave me when I opened my eyes, the half-smile, half-fear look like he wanted to say something but didn't know how. We lay there for a while, not moving, not saying anything. Finally, I turned to face him. "Hey," he blinked, startled. "Hey, we good?" I asked. Sean nodded, brushing his hand over his face. "Yeah. Just figuring it out." "Yeah. I didn't think I'd feel this way," he added quietly. I swallowed. "About me?" "About this. Any of it." "Yeah, me neither." He exhaled, eyes on the ceiling again. "What do we do now?" It was a good question. I didn't have an answer. Not yet. But I reached out and grabbed his hand, just for a second. He looked at me, surprised, then didn't let go. So I said, "We figure it out," and he nodded. "Okay." For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel broke or lost or stuck. I just felt something real. The days that followed felt like standing on a frozen lake. Everything looked still, but underneath, something alive was moving. Sean and I didn't bring up that night again, or the one before it, or the quiet way he'd laced his fingers with mine as the sun crept through the blinds. We acted normal. Or tried to. We made breakfast together, we fought over dishes, we argued about job leads, and shared cheap beer on the balcony when the day ended. The same rhythm as before, but something had shifted in the pauses. Every time our shoulders brushed, there was an extra beat before one of us moved away. Every laugh carried a trace of awareness neither of us wanted to name. That Friday, we met up with a few friends at a dive bar near the train tracks. I told myself it would help ground things again. Beer, noise, the distraction of other people. Sean was relaxed, maybe too relaxed, leaning back in his seat, eyes bright under the dim lights. When one of our friends joked about him finally living with a guy who cleans, he shot me a grin that lingered a second too long. No one else noticed. But I did. Later, when we stepped outside for air, the night was thick with humidity. The street lamps buzzed. The air smelled faintly of rain. Sean tugged at his hoodie and said, "You okay?" "You've been quiet." "Just tired," I said. He nodded, but the silence that followed wasn't casual. "We good?" he asked. "Yeah." He shifted, leaning against the wall, eyes fixed on the asphalt. "Because I don't want to screw this up." "Us." The word hung there. "Us." I kicked at a pebble. "You're not screwing anything up." He looked up then, really looked, and whatever he saw in my face must have steadied him. He exhaled slowly, then smiled. "Okay, back home, neither of us said anything about sleeping arrangements. We just went through the motions. Brushed teeth, turned off lights, climbed into the same bed we'd been sharing all along. But this time, there wasn't any hesitation." He lay on his back, arm resting behind his head, and I found myself shifting closer until my shoulder brushed his. "Hey," he murmured. "Yeah?" He hesitated, then said, "I keep thinking about that first night. When I woke up with my arm around you, I thought you'd freak out." "I almost did." He chuckled softly. "But you didn't." "No." A pause. "Why not?" "Because I wanted it. Because I'd wanted him longer than I'd ever admit. But I didn't say that. Instead, I shrugged in the dark. I don't know, it felt nice." He turned toward me, his breath brushing my cheek. "Yeah," he said quietly. "It did." We were close enough now that I could see the outline of his jaw, the faint scar under his chin from where he'd fallen off his skateboard sophomore year. He looked both familiar and completely new. "You're staring," he said, a small smile playing at the corner of his mouth. "Am not." "R2." The smile widened. I felt my pulse kick up, loud enough that it seemed to fill the room. "Sean," I said, barely a whisper. He didn't answer, just reached out and brushed his fingers against mine, slow, tentative. When I didn't pull away, his hand slid to my wrist, then to my shoulder. It wasn't planned. It wasn't even a kiss at first. Just the warm press of his forehead against mine, our breaths mixing in the dark. Then, softly, carefully, he leaned in. It wasn't perfect. It was hesitant, almost clumsy, like both of us were trying to remember something we'd never learned. But it was real, so real it made my chest ache. When he pulled back, he searched my face, waiting for some sign of regret. I didn't give him any. I just whispered, "Finally." He laughed under his breath, the sound shaky with relief, and pulled me in again. When we finally drifted off, tangled up in each other, the city outside went on making its noise. The sirens, the trains, the heartbeat of everything we couldn't control. But in that small, cheap apartment, the world felt quiet for once. The next morning, sunlight hit us straight in the eyes. My head was resting on his chest, his arm slung loosely around me. For a second, I forgot to breathe. Then Sean stirred, blinking awake. His voice came out rough with sleep. "So, I guess that happened." "Yeah," I said, trying not to smile. He stared at the ceiling for a long time. "You okay with that?" "I'm more than okay." He turned his head, the corner of his mouth lifting. "Good. Because I kind of want to do it again." I laughed, the sound muffled against his shoulder. "You don't waste time, do you?" He shrugged. "I've been wasting time for years." I didn't have an answer for that, so I just kissed him again, because words felt too small for what was finally unfolding between us. The next few days were weird, in that good, almost unreal kind of way, like the feeling you get after a long storm breaks and the air is just still. Sean and I didn't sit down and map out what was happening between us. There were no labels, no declarations, no big emotional speeches. It was just this quiet shift, like gravity had tilted and we were slowly adjusting to walking on a slant. But the changes were there. He'd come up behind me in the kitchen and rest his chin on my shoulder. When I passed him the remote, our hands would linger just a beat longer. And at night, we didn't even bother with opposite sides of the bed anymore. He'd pull me close the second the lights were off, or I'd turn into him without thinking. It felt natural, like we'd been doing it for years. We still did normal stuff, job hunting, groceries, watching trash TV, but everything had a new undercurrent. Like we were holding hands underwater, quiet but constant. There was this one afternoon. I was on the couch editing a freelance design gig, and Sean was sprawled out next to me, flipping through some architecture portfolio stuff he was prepping for an interview. Out of nowhere, he said, "My mom's been asking to FaceTime." I glanced at him. Okay. She doesn't know about any of this. He gestured vaguely between us. I raised an eyebrow. "You want her to?" He hesitated, then shrugged. "Eventually." "I mean, yeah, I just don't want it to be a thing, you know?" I nodded. "Yeah, I get that." We went quiet again. "I think she always thought I'd end up with someone like, I don't know, a yoga instructor named Megan," he said. I smirked. "Sorry, I'm not bendy enough." Sean grinned. "You are so not bendy." "Rude." He nudged my knee with his. "She's just gonna be surprised, that's all. I barely saw this coming, so it makes sense she wouldn't either." I studied him for a moment. "You barely saw this coming?" His smile turned sheepish. "Okay, maybe not barely. Maybe I just didn't want to admit it." I nodded slowly. "Same." Sean tossed his portfolio to the side and leaned in. "But I'm glad it happened. Us." "Me too." He kissed me then, soft, nothing showy, and pulled back with this quiet look in his eyes that made my stomach twist in the best way. We didn't need to say anything else. That night, I woke up before him. It was still dark out. The fan clicked lazily in the corner. He was breathing steady, one hand tucked under his pillow, the other draped over my waist, and I just watched him for a while. Sean, my best friend, my roommate, the guy the first never thought I'd fall for, looked peaceful, not guarded, not joking, just completely at ease. I remembered the first time we'd shared the bed, how stiff we were, how careful. Now he was practically molded against me like he belonged there. And for the first time, I realized I wasn't scared anymore. Not scared of where this was going, not scared of messing it up, because even if it did go sideways, and maybe it would, we'd figure it out. That's what we did. That's what we'd always done. The next day was sunny and warm, a rare break from the city's usual gray. We opened the windows and let the breeze in while we cleaned the apartment for no reason other than we finally had the energy. I was sweeping near the door when Sean said, "Hey, so I told my mom we could FaceTime tomorrow." I looked up. "Yeah? Yeah. I want to tell her." I leaned on the broom handle, heart fluttering a little. "You sure?" He nodded. "I mean, it's not like we're writing wedding vows, but I want to stop pretending this isn't real." I crossed the room, wiping my hands on a dish towel. "It is real," I said. He smiled and leaned in. "I know." We kissed, right there in the middle of our crooked little apartment with the broom between us and crumbs still on the floor. It wasn't fancy, it wasn't dramatic, but it was ours. And that felt like enough. Sean told his mom. We sat on the couch, side by side, laptop open in front of us, and I let him do most of the talking. His mom was smiling through the screen, cheerful as ever, asking how the job hunt was going, if we'd fixed the broken fan yet, if Sean was still drinking too much iced coffee. Then his voice got quieter. "There's something else," and he said it. He didn't call it a relationship. He didn't use labels. He just said, "Me and Jamie, we've gotten kind of close." His mom blinked. "Close how?" Sean glanced at me. "Like, not just roommates close." There was a pause. A long one. I felt it in my chest. Then his mom said, "Okay." And just like that, The air shifted. She didn't cry. She didn't freak out. She just nodded and said, "I always thought he was cute, to be honest." I almost spit out my water. Sean turned bright red. "Mom!" "What?" "I have eyes. He does his dishes. That's more than you ever did in college." It was awkward and sweet and a little surreal. But by the time we ended the call, Sean looked like he'd had a weight lifted off his chest. After that, it got easier. We didn't tell everyone. Not yet. But the people who mattered, our close friends, my sister, his old roommate, we told them quietly. No announcements. Just, hey, this is a thing. Most people didn't even blink. Then one night, Sean got an email. I was brushing my teeth when he called out, "Babe, come here." I wiped my hands and walked into the bedroom, still half asleep. "What?" He spun the laptop around. "I got it." My stomach flipped. "Got what?" "The internship. In Denver. The one with the firm I applied to like months ago." I blinked. "Wait, I thought they ghosted you." "So did I, but I guess someone dropped out or something. They want me to start in 2 weeks. 2 weeks. I sat down slowly on the edge of the bed. "That's fast." "Yeah. Is it full-time?" 3 months. Summer internship. "But if it goes well, they might offer something longer." I nodded. "Wow. That's huge." He was staring at me. His face didn't match the excitement in his voice. It was tight, like he was waiting for something to break. "You're going," I said, finally. He didn't answer. "You have to go. This is what you've been working toward." "Yeah," he rubbed the back of his neck. "I just didn't think it would come now." I looked down at the comforter. We knew this was temporary, right? The apartment. The setup. Yeah. But I didn't think we were. That caught me off guard. He reached out and grabbed my hand. "I want to do this. The job. But I don't want this thing with you to, I don't know, hit pause. Just because I'm not sleeping 2 feet away." I nodded slowly. "We'll figure it out." "You sure?" "Yeah. I mean, it'll suck. But we'll figure it out." He smiled then. Not a big grin, but the kind of smile that said he believed me. And the thing was, I believed it too. The last week before he left felt like a weird mix of countdown and rewind. Every night we spent together felt heavier. Not in a sad way, just full of all the little things we were trying to memorize. The way he stole the blanket. The way he hummed when brushing his teeth. The way he looked when he wasn't joking, just watching me. I hated thinking about that bed being half empty again. The night before his flight, we packed his suitcase together. Folded shirts. Rolled socks. Argued over whether he really needed 3 pairs of running shoes. I tucked a Polaroid of us in between his sweaters when he wasn't looking. That night, we lay in bed like always. But this time, we didn't fall asleep right away. Sean was quiet for a long time, then said, "You know what I thought that first night I got into bed with you?" I turned toward him. "That I snore?" He snorted. "No, I thought, if I move closer, I'll probably ruin everything." I smiled. "You almost did." "But I didn't." "No, you didn't." He pulled me in, pressing his forehead to mine. "This isn't me saying goodbye. It's just a new part." "I know. You sure?" "Yeah, I'm sure." At the airport, we didn't do the dramatic farewell thing. No teary hugs or running back for one last kiss. We just stood there at the security gate, like 2 guys who suddenly knew a lot more about each other than they used to. He kissed me. Quick, but certain. "I'll call you when I land," he said. "You better. Don't let anyone else steal my side of the bed." I raised an eyebrow. "You mean the one you hogged?" He winked. "Exactly." And then he was gone. I watched him disappear into the line, still not believing how fast things had changed, how fast they'd gotten real. And when I got home, I stood in the middle of our apartment and let the quiet sink in. For the first time in weeks, it felt empty. But not in the way I'd feared. Because it wasn't the end. It was just another version of us. Long distance wasn't the nightmare I thought it would be. It wasn't easy. Don't get me wrong. It sucked not being able to roll over and see him there. Not being able to hear his dumb jokes in the morning, or feel his arm drape across me when he shifted in his sleep. But somehow, it wasn't the disaster I had braced for. We found a rhythm. Sean would call most nights after work, always with his laptop open and a bowl of something half-eaten next to him. He looked tired, but in that good way, like he was being challenged, like he was doing something that made him feel alive. I loved seeing that, and he always asked about me, about my gigs, the apartment, even the corner bodega guy who gave me free bananas when he was in a good mood. He remembered everything. He listened. Sometimes we'd fall asleep with our phones still on FaceTime. I'd wake up to the soft sound of his breathing on the other end. Once, I caught myself reaching out to touch him, forgetting I was alone in bed. I didn't tell him that, but I think he felt it too. We'd send each other stuff in the mail, dumb postcards, inside jokes scribbled on scraps of paper, a playlist on an old USB stick, even a t-shirt that still smelled like his laundry detergent. I wore it constantly. I think I was scared the scent would fade before he came back. And then, one Thursday night, exactly 6 weeks after he left, he didn't call, no text, no running late, no anything. I waited, checked my phone obsessively, told myself not to panic. He probably just passed out early. By 1 a.m., I was pacing the apartment, caught between worry and that awful, spiraling dread. The kind that makes your chest feel hollow. I tried to sleep, but I kept waking up, glancing at my phone. Still nothing. I gave up by sunrise. Dragged myself into the kitchen, made a pot of coffee I didn't want, and stared out the window like some sad indie movie character. Then my phone buzzed. Sorry, overslept. Flight got in late. Wait, flight? Before I could respond, there was a knock at the door. I froze. No way. I opened it. Sean was standing there, suitcase in one hand, wearing a hoodie I hadn't seen in weeks. His hair was a mess, and his eyes were rimmed with exhaustion, but he smiled like he hadn't slept in a year and was finally home. Hey, he said. What the hell? I muttered, stepping back, shocked. He rolled his suitcase in and kicked the door closed behind him. Surprise! I blinked at him. You're supposed to be in Denver. I still am, technically. I took a long weekend. Dude, I missed you, he said, cutting me off. And the Wi-Fi at my place sucks. I stared at him, half laughing, half pissed, and a little speechless. You flew halfway across the country because your Wi-Fi sucks? Mostly because of you. He stepped closer. Okay, all because of you. And then he kissed me. Right there, by the door, with the coffee still brewing and my hair sticking up and my heart pounding so hard I thought I might pass out. It wasn't a rushed kiss. It was slow, sure. Familiar. His hands on my back, his breath warm against my mouth, like everything he hadn't been able to say over the phone was in that one moment. When we finally broke apart, I whispered, "You really flew back just to kiss me?" No, he said. I flew back because I needed to feel like this again. I swallowed. You always know exactly what to say. I've had a lot of practice. He smirked. Mostly staring at your face on a screen. I laughed then, leaning my forehead against his chest. You're staying, right? At least tonight. He wrapped his arms around me. I'm not leaving this bed until Monday morning. Bold, I said. I planned to back it up. We didn't go anywhere that weekend. Didn't meet up with friends. Didn't make plans. Didn't even clean. We stayed in bed. Ordered food. Talked. Dozed. Touched. Kissed like we were still trying to make up for all the nights we spent apart. It wasn't dramatic. It was better than that. It was real. And Sunday night, lying tangled up together in the dim light of the bedroom, Sean whispered, I think I'm falling in love with you. My heart stopped. Not because I didn't feel it, but because I had been waiting to hear it. I didn't say anything for a second, just shifted so I could see his face. "You think?" I teased gently. He laughed under his breath. "Okay, I am." I kissed him once, slowly. "Good. Because I've been there for a while." He pulled me closer, burying his face against my neck. "I don't want to go back." "I know," I said, "but we'll make it work. You and me." He nodded. "Yeah, we will." And this time, when we fell asleep, it wasn't just warm or comforting or familiar. It felt like a promise. Summer ended fast. Too fast. One minute, we were standing in line for iced coffees in flip-flops and tank tops. The next, we were checking weather apps and pulling sweaters out of storage. The sun started setting earlier, the breeze started getting sharper, and with it came a quiet pressure neither of us wanted to talk about yet. Sean had to go back. Not permanently. Just to finish the internship. He still had 2 weeks left to wrap up some client research and present a final proposal. He didn't want to go. I didn't want him to either. But we both knew what this opportunity meant. "It's 2 weeks," he kept saying, like he was trying to convince himself. And it was. But still, the night before he flew back, we sat on the fire escape outside our apartment, passing a beer back and forth, our legs dangling into the night. The street below was quiet, people walking by in jackets and scarves now, instead of t-shirts and sandals. "I don't want to do long distance again," Sean said finally, the bottle resting between his hands. I looked at him. "You're already planning to never leave my side again?" "Basically, yeah." I smiled. "I'm not going to stop you." He nudged me gently with his shoulder. "You're the reason I want to come back. Denver's been great, but it's not home. This is." "This," I said, glancing down at the worn bricks and the dented AC unit behind us, "is a fire escape." "You know what I mean." I did. We sat in silence for a while, listening to the hum of the city, the clink of dishes in a nearby apartment, someone laughing 2 floors up. I leaned my head against his shoulder. "When the internship ends, what happens?" I asked. "Do you think they'll offer you something full-time?" "Maybe," he said. "If they do, we'll talk about it. We'll decide." "You sure?" He looked at me. "I don't want to be the guy who puts a job before the person he loves." There it was again. That word. No hesitation this time. Just quiet certainty. I didn't say anything for a second, just reached over and took his hand. Then I whispered, "I love you too." 2 months later, Sean moved back. For good. He turned down the offer in Denver, not because it wasn't a good job. It was. Great pay, big firm, future connections. But it wasn't us. It wasn't late-night takeout on the floor or morning coffee in mismatched mugs. It wasn't falling asleep with the window cracked and our legs tangled under a too small blanket. He found something local. A smaller firm, less money, more freedom. Something that let him stay here. Stay with me. We didn't make some grand announcement on Instagram. We didn't move into a fancy loft with matching keychains or start calling each other partners in front of strangers. We just kept doing what we'd been doing. Living, learning, figuring it out. Some nights, I still wake up to find him curled around me, exactly like he was that very first time. Only now, there's no confusion, no hesitation. Just this steady, quiet thing we built together. One night, one morning, one breath at a time. And every now and then, when we're lying in bed, and the city hums outside like a heartbeat, he'll look over at me and smirk. "Still glad you let me share your bed?" And I'll say the same thing every time. "I didn't let you. You just kept inching closer." Then he'll kiss me, and I'll kiss him back. And we'll fall asleep in a bed that's no longer something we're just borrowing. It's ours now.